So this week, instead of posting another lesson for From Brush to Palette Knives, I wanted to go over something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, the struggle during a painting, or what artists usually don't talk about. It's almost like, oh, I'm not allowed to tell anybody that I'm struggling on this painting. Um, I think the closest I have ever seen that we actually talked about it on the podcast was with Joe McGurl, and he was talking about how his paintings are never really finished, and how when he got one back from a gallery, um, he was wondering why he let it go to the gallery to begin with, all that kind of conversation, which kind of goes into this. But I have been struggling with the painting for a while now, and it's really kind of interesting because I paint with my class. I started this one with my class at the Middletown Arts Center, and started with a value study and went through all this stuff, and it just wasn't speaking to me. So what I wanted to do was go through that process and always know that struggling with something is okay. And so I thought maybe by going through this, it might help you with your process and what you do when you're painting, and kind of recognize when you're struggling with something and what to do about that. So the first place that we start is with the value study. Back when I was working with Kevin McPherson, we painted all the different areas up there by the Bay of Fundy. And this particular photo is one that I took up while I was painting at St. Andrews by the Sea. And it has a 40-foot tidal. When tide goes out, it's like 40 feet, and then it comes back in 40 feet. So, you could get these stranded boats that are just laying on what looks like a beach. And it was, it was an interesting photograph, and it was really pretty with the way the light was hitting it and different things about it that went on. You can see the little fishing village there behind it. And then that goes around the corner, and then there's more fishing villages. It's on pointer, the stew pen. So, there's a fishing village here, and then there's this fishing village here. And there's this really nice castle up here. So it was kind of interesting. Then there's this like little village back in this area, and then this nice little mountain and these great clouds. And then, here's this big mast kind of right in the middle of this. So I laid it all out. The values looked nice. Everything looked okay. Nothing was really jumping out of me as, being totally clear or anything. So I just kind of was like, oh, okay, let's step back and look at this. Is it all right? Do I like it? I'm not particularly wild about this value right in here. Maybe this value needs to be up here, except for it's in the light. And I don't know, there was a whole bunch of questions that were going. What did I like? What didn't I like? Well, I really didn't like this, and I really didn't like this. And, so I was like, this isn't really grabbing me. It really isn't something that, I'm really excited about coming back and finishing up. The other thing that I noticed later on was, I'm not going to be able to draw this very well, but if you look at the rule of thirds, I'm not going to draw full lines, and these are approximate. So where these lines intersect, sorry, let's take those off. So where the lines would intersect, prime areas approximately, there really isn't anything in those prime focal areas to draw my attention. So that was like the first thing that should have jumped out at me. Something like this makes a great photograph, doesn't necessarily make a great painting. The other thing is my photograph naturally was a different size than what my actual canvas size was. So I had to do some readjustments with stuff, and you could tell I was, I'm kind of struggling with, how big is this fishing village back here and how big is this? So, I just kind of said, well, we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that as I go painting along. I can always make these shorter, blah, blah, blah. So, and then the next week, what we ended up doing was, I started to add color, made these guys a little more prominent, and too big. Okay, but I kind of liked them being there, little old castle feel. And I put in this nice color here back here on this little hill or mountain, and these nice clouds coming out of it. And this cloud actually in the photograph didn't go all the way over here. It kind of ended in the same spot, and you could tell that this cloud goes behind this little castle that I'm putting in. And I was just like, you could tell already I'm starting to throw things in that I think is going to help it, but isn't really helping it. What do I like so far? I like this. I like this area a lot right in here. But the rest of it, I was still fighting. I was still, ugh. So let's go to this next slide. So like I said, what did I like? I liked this. This was okay. I could live with that. I could make something out of it later. Not really wild about this yet. They're just too big. I mean, these guys probably on the same plane. This guy's way too big. This guy's, he can fit in okay. Still not wild about this fishing village. Still wasn't invested in this painting. I was already struggling. And it should have been the first thing that should have jumped out at me was I was struggling in the value study. And I should have stepped back right then in the value study and said, why am I painting this? What's compelling me to paint this? Why should I paint this? And like I said, there wasn't really anything that was jumping out at me. So what I did, like during this session, because I was talking about this with my art class, and they were like, oh, I really like this. I like this color here, and I like this, and they liked all of it really so far. But I think a lot of it was they don't want to tell a teacher they don't like something. So, which I'm sure everybody's been there. But I kept saying, it's just not grabbing me. It's just not grabbing me. And they were like, well, what don't you like about it? So we went through that whole conversation of what I didn't like. And I said, but I can change all that as I go along. So I played around with it. I threw some more paint on it. I took the village out. I did a bunch of different things, and still wasn't grabbing me. As a matter of fact, it was so, it wasn't grabbing me so much that I ended up not even taking pictures of it. So I said, well, I'm done with this. I'm putting it away. I'm not even going to look at it for, weeks. And they were like, oh, you got a good painting going. You really, really should. And I was like, no, I'm struggling too much. If I ever come back to it, it'll be a miracle. I'm not going to worry about it. So when I did that, when I put it away, what did it look like? It looked like this. Okay. So you could tell, I'm just kind of throwing colors in here and there and all this. And this is when I just basically, wiped my hands. I put it away. I walked away from it. It was getting to be too big of a struggle. Again, the part I really like about it is this part right here. The rest of the painting, not so much. I can deal with this. These guys got smaller. I thought, I could keep that. That's good. But there's still no focal point, right? You come in, you walk along the beach, it points you right out of the painting. This isn't enough to grab you. I mean, there's nothing here that's going to make you stay in the painting. Rule of third wise, this way. There still really isn't much here. I'm thinking, well, maybe if I make these, nice little reflections down here, that'll be enough to grab people. Well, it just kind of looks, trashy, I played around with, well, do I need to make this value lighter? So you could tell, there's nothing really finished in this painting except for maybe this area that I had circled. This is looking nice, and this nice little village back here looks pretty nice too. So I started looking through some photographs back after I pulled this out and took a look at it. I started looking at some photographs, and I'm thinking, well, I don't necessarily have to stick with staying at the Bay of Fundy, and I can just kind of start to make things up. And if you notice, the little fishing village is back here now. I didn't like the way it made its turn and came here and got bigger, so I stuck this little castle up here. Like I said, this was weeks and weeks and weeks ago before I put it away. So I started looking through my pictures, and I said, I think this thing does need a boat, number one. But I don't want to just stick one boat in here somewhere. So looked through my my photo reference up in Bay of Fundy, and started looking for things. And I found some boats that were sitting close to one another. And I said, well, I kind of like that. And I played around with having channel markers in here as well. I don't know if you can see it. There's like part of one that was here. Again, just sticking things in. This was, like I said, weeks and weeks ago, just sticking things in to see how it would change. I put a dock in, I think. But I still had everything pointing over here, and there was nothing here to take us to keep us in the painting. There was nothing really balancing it there. It was just, like I said, a struggle the whole way. So when I pulled it out a week ago, after looking at a number of different references, I said to myself, what is it I want to do with this painting? So what did I want to do with this? Other than put a knife to it, what did I want to do with this? And when I say put a knife to it, I mean like chip off all the paint I could and start over. After finding that photo reference, I decided that I was going to drop in a couple boats and a channel marker. And so what I did was I took Michael Harding black paint, thinned it out, and just kind of drew in a couple boats from other reference that I had. So what did I have to do when I did that? First of all, I have to remember the lighting in my first photograph that I was working from was totally different than the lighting on these boats that I was looking at. So I had to tell myself, where's my lights and where's my shadows? And I had to make those different and make those change. So my light's coming from the right, as you can tell here. Okay. This is a shadow from the easel on the picture I took, so don't pay any attention to that. But I don't take professional photos as I'm painting in my in-progress stuff. I only get Tom to take a finished painting photo. So you might see stuff like this where the shadow is on the from an overhead light is on the canvas. Another thing that you should always keep in mind too is where your lights are, hitting your canvas in the room when you're painting. Still like this area back here. I don't want to completely cover it up. But I was also considering that is probably the most done part of the painting. So I really don't touch that. So I want to drop these guys in. I want to make sure that they're perspectively correct. This has a lot of atmosphere in it already, so it does push back a little bit. It gets pushed back a little bit more by the size of these boats. And I have one that's going off the canvas, kind of pointing off the canvas, but I'm going to have a stopper here. So I'm going to put one of those long cylinder-like buoys on this side of it, so it kind of catches our eye and directs us back up. Not really worried about the back part of this boat because it's, as you'll see in the color painting, it just kind of all melds together. It's on the light side, so this one will be casting shadow onto this boat, and this is the shadow side of this boat. So if there's light, it'll be light that's coming through a window and, just very subdued. It's not going to be as bright as something that has a direct sunlight to it. So I just kind of took my black paint and just said, okay, I'm just going to kind of draw these in this week to see if I like it. Put it away after I was done, pulled it out the next week and went, I do kind of like that. Now if I look at the rule of thirds, I've got some stuff going on here that, will get us in a rule of thirds focal area that will make the viewer kind of come in and look and stay a while. So that was the beginning of, I found my star. There was no star in this painting before, and the painting needed a star, and now I have a star. Okay, it's this whole area here. So this past week, I started painting again on it and playing around with color, and really like the way that these pop with one another. I'll probably be putting in some of this color over here somewhere just so that I can connect the two, because now it's starting to feel a little bit too much like two different paintings, but it certainly is coming along. I like it a lot better, like this little buoy down here just kind of hanging out. And some of the colors in here are really, really gorgeous. and luscious, and I like that. And I like the way the boat's feeling in here. So what's next? Um, I need to paint in this naturally, this second boat. I need to rework the water. Definitely. I need to work a little bit on this reflection here and the reflections in the water, and just kind of ask myself, what I want to do with these reflections. Are they good? Do I want to tame them down a little bit? All of that kind of thing. But I really like where this is going now. It's still a struggle, but I'm learning from it. I'm a lot more excited about painting this. Folks are interested more in the painting than they were before. I keep, Tom came out like that and he goes, "Oh, this is France." And I went, "No, not really." "Well, look at all these castles." I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, it does have kind of castles up there, but you know what? I'm not worried. If somebody walks in and they have a disagreement about whether it's France or whether it's St. Andrews by the Sea up in Canada, and they can argue about that all they want. At least they're standing there talking about the painting, right? So I'm not all that worried about staying true to the particular subject. I want this painting to be very, very nice, and to me, it still says Bay of Fundy. Maybe I'll do something here with some bright red to pull these in, so I have this nice little like triangle of red, and that pulls this fishing village in a little bit more. Might glaze this little area more with some different colors so it feels like the fishing village type of thing and pulls us back more towards St. Andrews by the Sea. So I talked a little bit about what next. What is next on this is, we're going to put this another boat in here and have to ask myself, what color do I want this boat to be? There was this really gorgeous green color, teal color that I may use on this boat just because it's a red and green complement, and then it pulls the green in here too. Have to finish up the water and make it look more connected. Definitely looks like I just dropped these guys in, which is exactly what it is. And then I'll step back and study it a little bit more and decide, what else is needed. So wanted to talk about the lesson I learned from all of this, and hopefully you've learned by listening to me. We all struggle, whether we want to admit it or not, whether it's with a scene in a novel or a painting. What you need to do is step back and ask yourself some questions. And most of those questions start with, what if? What if I push the hill and the mountain in the back of the painting and give it more atmosphere? What if I got rid of the Cracker Jack box looking fishing town over here? I mean, it just looks like a bunch of boxes. It didn't really jump out at me. It didn't look right. But what if I did something with those? What if I got rid of them? What if I did something different? What if I dropped in a few more boats? What if I dropped in a few boats over here instead of this boat? What would have happened if I would have kept what was there and really forced myself to paint this and draw this more correctly, more accurately? Would that have made a difference? I don't think it would have, because you still have this, this thing's dissecting the, I could have made that smaller, but then it wouldn't have looked right with this. So, I mean, you ask yourself all these questions. So what if, what if, what if I determine earlier on what should be the star of the painting and put that in first in my value study, and then put everything else around it, versus working from the very back to the front, because the very back I always liked and still like. And so all these different what if questions. But it is struggle. It's still a struggle. I'm still struggling with it, and it's okay. And so why is that? Did you want to see the finished painting? Well, we're going to talk about that some other time. The painting's not ready yet. I'm still working on it. But the lesson for today is sometimes the struggle is worth it, and it makes us think. It expands our knowledge. It makes us stretch. It's uncomfortable. We learn something. We explore what we know, and we apply it if we can. It's the journey, and sometimes struggling is a part of that journey. And if it isn't, then maybe there's one more question you need to ask yourself. What if I'm painting the same formula for each painting? Am I too formulaic? It's a good question to ask yourself. And remember, it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to fail, because that is where you're going to learn the most. And as much as everybody doesn't want to admit that they're struggling or that they sometimes have failed paintings, and the reason why we don't know that they're struggling, and the reason why we don't know that they have failed paintings is no one ever posts those. Okay. We don't put those out to Facebook for everybody to see because it's a failure. We don't want to show our bad stuff. So I wanted to basically show you this painting and the phases that it went through and the bad stuff so that you know that this goes on. It's not just you, and that the struggle is worth it to make it something better. And, will this painting ever go into a show? Will it ever be seen by anybody else besides my patrons and a few other folks that I share this with and my students at my Middletown Art Center classes? It might not. But then at the end of it, I may decide that I really, really like it and turn it into something that's wonderful. And it may go into a show or two. I may enter it in a number of different things, the area art show or something similar. It may become a painting that I'm very, very proud of because of the struggle that has gone through and the questions that I had to ask myself and stepping back. So again, here's where we were. This is where we are, work in progress. And, tune in and we'll show you the finished painting when it's done. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys got something out of this little journey we went on. And like I said, remember, it's okay to struggle and to fail.